Okay, so welcome to another Exploring Consciousness installment here with the Nouveau team and our lovely guests. And today we're going to explore a little bit the male-female connection, to find to look at the relationship with ourselves that then is being reflected outside into our partners, and not obviously just partners, because we're in relationship with pretty much everything that is out there. And often, you can look at the outside in. And today, it's just one of the things that I used to look at a lot, and that has helped me quite a bit. At the level of, exploration, we're talking now, there's often, we've got two more people come in. Let me see how I
Okay.
see waiting room. Okay, admit. Okay. So yeah, the level we are exploring, it's often, that it's starting to get a bit blurred, and we don't necessarily have to go into the what is male, what is female, what is right brain, what is left brain. But I often find it quite useful to go back and chunk it down a little bit, and see what is actually left there to look at. Has anyone done type of male-female work, integration?
I'd have done a little bit, Martina.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting because we carry male and female, all of us, irrespective of what gender we are. So it's interesting to see how you say me as a female, how I might need to employ more of the male, in certain areas, or to put myself out there in the world or whatever. So it is quite an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah. Have you found that in your relationships that you sometimes keep attracting a certain character into your life? Could be a friend, doesn't have to be a partner, that somehow tells you a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I have. I've actually, at the moment, I have 3 very good female friends who tell me a lot about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And me with them as well. So it kind of works both ways. And, we're very honest with each other, and it's interesting to be able to have that reflection in my life. I've always wanted that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel quite
Yeah.
blessed that I have it, because they're able to process it with me. Whereas I have other people in my life, like my colleagues at work in different places, where I could see it as well, but it doesn't get processed in the same way. So it's really interesting to have people in your life that you're close to, that you can process that with.
That's really fabulous, and that's what I call a true friend. You can actually say,
Yes.
look, I'm stuck with something here. Can you just listen and facilitate me almost? Just ask me a few questions,
Oh,
Don't need to
yes.
go into the story. That's really, really useful to have in life.
It is.
Absolutely. And most of the times that don't necessarily will be your partner, unless you are truly, truly blessed and have
Yes.
chosen that. But that's
Yeah.
okay too,
It
because you
is,
can't
because I
expect the
think with
one
the,
person to be
yeah,
everything.
yeah, I think with partners sometimes it might start off like that. But then in my experience, I have found I'm with my partner for quite a few years. There's a lot of other stuff that comes in as well. There's a lot of experiences that we've had, a lot of disappointment. So that's all there now in the field, as it were, when we come to each other. So the other people in my life wouldn't have had that kind of connection with me. So their
Yeah.
fields, when they meet me, are clearer. If you understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we learn probably what we do like about ourselves and what we don't necessarily like about
Yeah.
ourselves by looking at our partners and by interacting with them. Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So let's kick it off with looking at the left and the right side of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is related to the male, which is often associated. And again, you've got to, don't get hung up about this is just for guidance here, because it's often associated with money and with career. Of course, nowadays, women, and the emancipation and everything is completely different. But just go with the energy of that. And then you got the right side of the body, which is more associated with the female side, which is all about the creativity and the past almost, you know. That's quite interesting. Whatever I found here, that information actually takes the female and associates it to the past, whereas the male is associated to the future. Okay, and then what happens is, interestingly, is with the species that have a proper spine, you know, so not the invertebrates like the worms and the insects, so all the mammals, the reptiles, the fish, the birds, and us, of course. With the spine, what happens is that behind, the nerves actually cross over. So what then happens is that the left side of the brain is associated with the right side of the body, and the right side of the brain is associated with the left side of the body. And why is this important? It's not necessarily important, but I have done a bit of work with that too. You know, when a client comes and says he's got a lot of issues on the right side of the body, that's always a bit of an indication to look at, okay, so what's going on with all the male issues, and the left side, like father issues, like career issues and stuff like that. And then obviously the opposite. So what are, you know, with the left side of the body, very much like what's going on with the opposite there. Yeah. So what do you, any questions so far?
Can you give any examples of the kind of,
yes,
for a male with going through to the other side of the body? So it's the left-hand side of the brain, but then the right-hand side of the body. Any kind of more examples you can give in that?
So for instance, a client that has been a lawyer who has been having issues all of a sudden, starting to have severe pain in the body, that is mainly on the, I need to check that I don't say it wrong, yeah, on the right side of the body, you know. So I do remember this client having, you know, talking to the client, starting to figure out that actually he was no longer happy in his career, for being a lawyer, being the one who actually has to go do a lot of judgment and conclusion and figuring stuff out and things like that. Yeah. So it's that. Or there's a client that comes, it doesn't matter if they have chosen a male or a female body. Yeah, it's the same sort of guidance that you can look at with the female side issues. A lot of, I don't know, it could be shoulder problem, it could be hip issues, could be anything really. Then very often what happens through the consultation, you start looking at, oh, so huge issues with mum. Yeah. Mum might have been very controlling, might have been, you know, overwhelming or stuff like that. And that very often can happen, that gets reflected in the various areas. As we know, very often people who carry a lot of weight for other people, they carry them on the shoulders. So every organ is, you can look into this, and Chill's got an amazing book. Chill, you might actually want to write this in the chat, that book that you have, which is, just tell us a little bit about that book.
This guy's come up with a concept where every ailment or illness or disease or whatever is represented by a physical. So yeah, so every emotional story is physically representedly in your body. For example, with your throat, you know, so if you've got a sore throat, you look in the book sore throat, and then he tells them that sort of matches to what physical, what emotional connection there is to that. And I mean, it's a thick book about this fact. Hang on, let me get it quick. Hang on.
Yeah. And of course, we all know that the information is stored holographically. You can feel it in your big toe, you know, which is connected to something completely different. Messages of the body.
It's the wrong way around. Basically, messages of the body.
Yeah, very cool. And as a therapist, or even, you know, if you're interested for yourself, it's often just to get a bit of a, you know, a bit of guidance, a bit of, oh yes, that works for me, no that doesn't, oh I haven't thought about that. And this book in particular, we've looked into it a couple of times so far, is very interestingly written. So they have done a lot of research on that, and all the all the underlying emotions are very much and very detailed. Yes.
Like for example, I've just had a cold sore, and when I looked in the book, what does a cold sore represent? It's basically angry words not spoken. So angry words on your not on your lip, and which then causing causing blisters.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic.
And
yeah,
there's also a book out there by Louise Hay. She came out with it about 20 years ago, The Healing Your Body.
Yes.
She's got those charts.
I started with that one.
Yeah.
So that's a very good one to start. And then if you want more, because you're working with people, then, you know, you can go into something like that. We've got Frida here. Frida, you just talk, because if you've got something to say, just welcome.
I was just going to interject. I'm licensed in QHHT with the Lars Canon. And what you were talking about now, we consider in the hypnosis techniques we use, the left side is considered the ego side. And so when we go through the hypnosis technique, we try to put the ego side aside and bring in the right side, which is our creative side, our past experiences. So in male and female is same. So ego side deals with your current life, what you do now. And then the switch you were talking about, left and right brain, that's correct as well. When you, and the lady was just talking about the mouth and experiences you visit in physical sense, that's absolutely correct. That's what we handle through QHHT. When we take someone in the past life or current life issues, what they experience, if they don't deal with it from the spiritual side, letting go, forgiving, all those things, then it manifests on the physical body. Yes. So for example, if they haven't received love or they haven't given love, they get to have a heart problem. If they have experienced always not being able to talk or not being able to say their part, then it goes to the throat. And then the physically, if they have skin rosacea, skin issues, it's the environment, exposure to things that they are not happy with, all sorts of things. So all of everything you just said, we learn and experience with that through QHHT. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you so much, Frida. Thank you very much. Now you said left hemisphere is related to ego.
Ego, yes.
What did you say? Right brain?
The current life, like whatever you're dealing with it at this lifetime. Whatever, and the right side is what you deal with in your past life experiences, things like that. So that's why we deal in QHHT, we deal with the right brain mainly, because that's where all the pictures and experiences are restored in your creativity, without people being involved in it.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I've got the past here too, so that explains that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
So let's actually ask a few, let's look at that. What have we got left? Let's not get confused with right side of the body or anything. Let's just stick to the hemispheres, okay? So Frida was just saying left side of the brain, ego, male. Let's work with that. What sort of characteristics would you think of that your male, that your left side of the brain, the logical side, okay? Deals with?
Language.
Yes. I've got a little list here, so I'm going to tick it off. Language, exactly. Words, yes.
Logic.
Logic, yes.
Problem solving.
Analysis, thanks, Sue, yeah.
Survival.
Yes. Yes. It's very much the linear and the thinking sequentially, and yes. Hi Dave. Yeah, thanks.
Mechanics, motor mechanics, as in body movement.
Yes. Yeah, movement.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say action.
Yeah,
Yes.
the male is the action, isn't it? It's all about the focus. It's all about, like we had one of our Zooms, we talked about mission and purpose. So P for Padre would be the male side, the focus and the plan making. And then the mission is the Madre, the female, which comes up with the ideas and the potentials and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. And again, it doesn't really matter what body, if you chose a female or a male body for this lifetime. This is now the left side of the brain. What else have you guys got?
Your job, your business.
Career, yes. Job, business, yes. And again, it's a guidance, okay? So, but this is what we're playing with today, so yeah.
How about memory?
Yes. Time aware. So the time awareness is a left side, is a left brain attribute here. Extroversion, ordered plan, all of that. Identification with an individual, so that. So separation, if you wish. Sees distinction and makes comparisons. That's a male one. Just keep throwing in if you got whatever.
Protection.
Yes.
Boundaries.
Yes.
I think that's a masculine.
Providing is as well as a big male one, isn't it?
Yeah, the provider. Yeah. And also it tends to look for the differences. So the male version in ourselves is to go look for the separateness, you know, look for the differences. So it's very much like, and then the female obviously does the opposite. Yeah. So going into looking at the oneness and everything. So what else would you think of now on the female side? The right brain, right side, the right hemisphere, connected to the past, connected to home, if you wish, the homemakers, the nurturers as such.
Inclusion.
Second?
Inclusion.
Yes, so the
Yes.
oneness, the inclusion.
Yeah.
Frida, just throw it in, huh?
Intuition.
Yeah.
Receptivity.
Creativity.
Your past life memories, your current life digestion of what you've experienced in terms of your spirit self.
The container, the womb, the container, and the void.
Yes.
It's also the right hemisphere, as Frida mentioned already, thinks more in pictures. But it's more the creative one, if you wish. It's more the visual one, whereas the other side, the male, is all about a language and words and that type of stuff.
Colors.
Yeah. Time free, the opposite for time. So it's more like, even though we can go into the past and all of that, but it's more like probably multitasking and just like, okay, not really paying that much attention to time.
Playtime. Having a good time.
Having a good time.
Laughing, jokes, comedy, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got heart-centered here. Flow of energy. The flow of energy apparently is faster than on the male hemisphere. They're slowing down. It's more like, okay, linearly. And the female side of the brain is is faster. Visual spatial relationship, as we already mentioned. So we've got the pictures and everything, things in pictures. Utilizes intuition, emotion, creativity. Thinks in whole and relation to the part. Think simultaneously. We already said multitasking and all that. And again, remind yourself, guys, here, this is all about, the female side in the male body too. So synthesizes, puts together, time-free, spontaneous, identifies more with groups. Okay, so this I'm gonna not.
Surrender.
Surrender, okay. Yeah, living more in the now. Being more present. Not like thinking about the future all the time.
More
Must be
fluid.
mystical as well. Sorry, Mary.
Yeah, it's okay. You said mystical. I was saying more fluid.
Mystical, yeah, it's actually mentioned here. Spirituality, linked to spirituality, to the mystical. So a bigger picture perceives wholes and connectedness. Okay, so this is just a little bit of what's going on within our bodies, okay, within our brains, that connection. And then, you know, just by looking at them now, you probably already have a bit of an idea, what do you feel more associated with. Having said that, the idea of this exercise and the idea of this whole looking at male and female is that you actually get to a place where you're no longer saying, oh, I am more female oriented, I'm more male, but you actually balance in a way that you can be completely male if you have to, and you can be completely female if that is required. And that's particularly important in a intimacy relationship where you really need to know what do I have to be now? Do I have to be more female in order to, let's say, turn on my guy, or the other way around? Do I need to take charge now? You know, and the thing is to be able to choose whatever is required, yeah, and not identify yourself with a particular orientation. And the more you're starting to have this balance, and again, I just want to say balance, as you probably all know, balance is not a static, neutral perspective. Balance means that you can be this, you can be that, you can be this, you can be that, and at some stage you can always find your way back to that and choose whatever is required. That's the real balance, having that choice, what, as I said, is required in that moment. Yeah. So what I would like to do is I'd like to do a little type meditation, and then we're going to start looking at more stuff, and then we'll take it from there. So if you just want to close your eyes or not, it's entirely up to you. It's not a long one. Where's my paper? Good. Maybe do close your eyes. It's always nice. And then maybe mute yourself so that we don't have anyone interfering with that. Yeah. And then just be comfortable for a moment. And just drop your barriers. So just let everything go. The walls of protection, the walls of what this has to be, the expectations, the projections, what it's not to be, and why would I, you know, all that sort of stuff. Just drop all that and just expand yourselves out a little bit. So think of that space, that 99.99999% space between the cells, between the molecules, between the atom, and just allow that to just really open yourself up a little bit. Expand yourself to the front, to the back, to the left, to the right. Good. And then allow your conscious awareness to just move into that quiet place with you. Now bring to your mind an image that represents your inner female. And this image could be an actual person, it could be an animal, or it could be something absolutely more abstract. An energy, a color, a shape, or simply a feeling. And take spontaneously what comes to you. So don't think too much about that. Just whatever the mind brings up, just work with that. And then take a look at your female and get a sense or feeling of what she represents to you. Notice some of the details of that image. Notice the colors, and textures. And just notice how you feel about her. I'll give you a couple of minutes here to just tune into that female image of yours. And then you can ask her if she has anything she would like to say to you right now. And allow yourself to receive that communication without going into conclusion, without having a point of view about it. And again, that communication may be in words, but it may not. So you may also ask her any questions that you have. There may be something you want to know about her, from her. And then just receive that communication, whether it comes in words, in a feeling, in colors, an image. You know, once you've allowed yourself to receive that communication, and you feel complete just for that particular moment of now, just take a deep breath and then release her image from your mind just now, and just keep her parked off somewhere to the side. And then come back to a quiet, still place and keep your eyes still closed. Just take a couple of big breaths in here. Draw your breath all the way from the tailbone up into the crown, and then exhale it back down again. And then we're going to draw an image that represents your male, the male self. And again, just take whatever image that comes to you without thinking too much. It could be an image of an actual man. It could be some abstract symbol or color, or feeling. And again, explore this image. And begin to notice the details of it. Notice its colors, its textures. Notice how you feel about him. And then just ask him if he has anything that he wants to communicate to you at this moment in time. Be receptive to receiving without judgment, whether in words or in other forms. And then if you have anything you want to say or to ask him, then you can do this now too. Be open to any of the words, the images that you may receive. And don't worry if an answer doesn't come to you right now. It may come during your sleeping time or tomorrow or later after the Zoom. And then once you feel complete with your communication here again, just release his image, park him off to the side for now, and come back into this quiet place. And then whenever you're ready, just open your eyes and come back into the room. Bring your attention back into the Zoom and into our discussion here. How was that? How was that for you? Anyone who wants to share their experience?
Interesting.
Mine was unexpected, actually. Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. We're gonna play with this.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah. So, but I just want to ask: did everyone get sort of something so that we can play with that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Does anyone want to share something, or not just yet?
Oh, I don't mind. I'll share. The female aspect was a tree, and I just felt like just connected to everything. Just connected was the word that I got. And then the masculine was a turtle, which was really strange because I've never really, paid much attention to that kind of totem. And the turtle was about migration, was the word that I got.
Mm-hmm.
It's really unexpected. Yeah, it's unusual for me.
Fabulous.
obviously you can't explain the feelings, can you, very well? The feelings were beautiful.
No, it's just so interesting what comes up, you know, as you say, and it can be so unexpected. Anyone else who wants to share something?
Yeah, my female aspect was a Celtic woman. Yeah, it was lovely. I actually liked her a lot. She had long flowing clothes and she was lovely. And her message for me was strength. And with the male aspect, the more I tried to focus on a man, the less I could actually connect, which is actually quite funny, I think. So I just thought, okay, I'm just going to forget about trying to see an image for this. So I went with the energy of it, and I found the energy, and the energy was surrender. That was the message.
Fabulous.
Mm.
You see, it's so interesting that, you know, how the brain works. Sometimes it gives you something completely, yeah, that's it, you know, tree, and then it just gives you an energy because it can't really put it into a particular word, but the word surrender came up. Okay.
Yes, and it tied in with the fact that I couldn't get an image in a way, but it was much deeper than that, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else who wants to share with us what came up?
Yeah. But my experience was quite interesting. My female was actually a lot more empowered. She was all very, and the message from her was really gentleness, and that it's okay to be in that place of receptivity, really. But my masculine.
What was the female a person, a woman?
Yeah. At first, it was a bit like a Mother Mary energy, which was quite surprising. But that was about the gentleness, and then the image was more just the bounty of being in nature and being in your joy, and the abundance of enjoying moments in nature and eating fruit. So it was quite sensual, but she was there. She was sovereign, which was quite interesting because I've been working on the feminine for many years now. And then what was really surprising was when I saw my masculine, it was like a really wimpy, gay, puny character who wasn't stepping in their power. Quite playful and fun, but not really taken. Not in his power. And then I suppose my sovereign masculine, which I know quite well as an energy, handed over the crown to this more passive, more feminine aspect of my masculine, sort of calling forward that potency, really, to go, no, it is okay, you know, you can really own your masculine here. So that's really interesting in light of.
Oh, that's fabulous. So you've already done a bit of work on this one. You've already started automatically, you know, looking at that, you know, and you've already created a change there, you know, so that's quite interesting because that's obviously part of what we're looking at. How can we then, you know, strengthen one side and look at the whole relationship between the two of them? Yeah, cool. Okay, so if anyone else who wants to share their experience,
I can chip in with mine. On the female side, it was a cheetah, the animal a cheetah, and I thought it was a masculine cheetah sort of, but it was a female one. And boy, was it moving fast, and I was trying to keep up, and I loved the energy of it. And then on my male side was a fox, and me and the fox, we were checking out this hen house, just checking when to attack.
Okay, when to attack. Okay,
so those are my two.
Fabulous, cool.
Love that.
So good. So keep those images with you for now. And what I remember, we're all electromagnetic beings. Okay, so electromagnetic means electric is related to the thoughts, so the male side of the body, and the magnetics is related to the heart, the female side of the body. So it's that again just shows how the importance or the validation or the value of bringing the left and the right side into balance and keeping that together. So female is also, I've got that written down, is infinite potential. Okay, so remind yourself it's fantastic to have infinite potential, but then you also need a strong male side to actually get the focus in and make a plan with that, you know. So what would you say if we now, and you can keep your symbolism in mind here, or maybe not just yet, but if you have a strong male hemisphere and a weak female, what would that look like in a person? Strong male and a weak female.
It's funny, this is a funny thing actually, Martina, because actually I see more women like that than I do men in my day-to-day. And I think it's something to do with the idea of having to have the family structure and having to do this, do that, do this, do that, have this bit there, that bit there. And it can come across quite bullshit and aggressive.
Yes, absolutely. So it's that masculinization the women often goes through, where really they're losing their female, they're losing their female expression, and they're turning almost into too much of being a man.
Yeah, it's the need to control everything.
The need to control, because they come from a background where they were controlled. They had no control over their own lives. They come from a no choice place, and that's what they then do. And what would you think a woman like that, or a man like that, would? Let's speak from a woman perspective first. What kind of partner do you think a woman will attract into their life if they have a
submissive partner?
Exactly, because they have too much male within themselves. And I can guarantee you from experience, they can still attract a very strong male, but probably a wounded one, quite wounded, and then they will try to fix that male.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can also speak from experience. Instead of actually realizing that, ooh, okay, instead of fixing my man, what if I just let go of that over masculinization, if that is a word, and bring out the female so that the male can actually step in? Because if the female takes over the male side, I mean, they've got nothing to do, right? It's like, okay, let it happen.
It's really interesting because I'm not very practiced at visualization, so I couldn't actually get an image, but I had real trouble getting, and I got a lot of pink for the woman, and then I got a very weak grey for the man. And interestingly, I can really recognise what you say. And my ex-husband is now going through gender reassignment, so it really shows it's true. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But in the visualization, I came across as, I thought, too much woman, but I think it's probably it's just all crowded into one strong, dominant energy. Yeah.
So I had my experience in my life was that I always felt that I had a huge male side, because I worked. I was always in the beginning of my life. I was always with the boys at school, fighting and all that. And then I worked in the oil industry, which was very male dominated. I could always feel a lot of not so good feedback from the women. There was always almost like they were scared of me, or I was too pushy, and I constantly had to say to myself, don't be so pushy, and la 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 and all that. And when I started looking at all of this, so I thought my feminine was not existing. I wasn't, but then I felt like I was always dressing quite feminine and stuff like that, so there was something that didn't really go together. And then when I realized, when I did this exercise, it was an Egyptian goddess and my male, beautiful Egyptian goddess, and my male, I had two male, yeah, they were servants to me, and they were drunk, yeah, completely drunk. And I said, what the hell? And they're just rolling around, and I was so pissed off with them because they were supposed to, you know, support me, and they were just pissed. And then I thought, what is going on here? And I was kind of happy to look at this female. I thought, okay, so there's nothing wrong with me on the female side. It's all good. It's a goddess. It's an Egyptian goddess. And then I started looking at it in more detail, and I realized that this Egyptian goddess almost had whilst she was a female, she was almost a male. Muscles like this, strong, even, you know, I had all sorts of armor around me and things like that. And I thought, oh my God, that was my masculinization, where I had really neglected my female so much and hadn't allowed her to come out because I had to protect myself and everything. So this is why my male were two for whatever reason, and they were pissed because they had nothing to do, because I did everything. Like, can some women relate to that?
It sounds, Martina, like you were amongst a load of predators, and you decided that you didn't want to be prey. You wanted to be a predator because you wasn't going to be pushed around or treated like a piece of meat like most of the other women were. And when they saw you like that, then you were a threat as well, because you were recognized as a predator.
Yeah. And if I look now back and, you know, all the work that I've done, this is obviously running in the female lineage, you know, going back, ancestral, you know, back. So I knew that, and I have a daughter, she's 21. I knew that if I could change it within me, she would have a much better chance and opportunity to not go into the same thing that I did with my mom and her mom and all that sort of stuff. And then also knowing, of course, that what we create change in this moment of the now, we are healing our ancestral lineages back into the past and well into the future. Yeah. So that was just my example. So, but let's look at strong male and weak female again. So that was actually, we just talked about the strong female and the weak male, you know. So what could be a strong male and a weak female? Well, which fits anyway, because I was talking about the other, masculinization. So it's very much process oriented, which I've always been. It's very much continuously seeking for creativity, and there is that frustration. So when the male is too strong, and it's for male and female, look at it from, I know it's all a bit confusing at times, but you continuously feel frustrated because you are so tending to the plan and to the process and to doing, and really the female is all about, you know, creativity and hanging back and allowing yourself to tap into those infinite possibilities from a different perspective rather than do.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Martina. And I think sometimes in relationships, the male, for one reason or another, may not be stepping up to the plate of being the male, and the female starts to fill those gaps, and the female then is doing both male and female, and the male really wants her to be the female, but he hasn't quite got it that he has to actually treat her like the female. Yeah. And, you know, she starts to fill in, because I was reared around a lot of males, and I would see this, I'm speaking from my own experience, I would see this in me. I would see it in the way that I have related to my brothers and my partner as well. And it's, I will automatically go to do what's needed to be done, you know, and I'm very much a doer. So that got very developed in me, rather than somebody who was able to sit back and wait and be helpless and paint my nails, you know.
Yeah.
So that does happen. I think it's in relationship, it can cause, you know, males long for that kind of woman, but they don't realize that they have actually to help the woman to fill that position, to be in that role.
You're absolutely right. And I want to add to that. Again, from my perspective, from my experience, the female, the over masculinized female, is often not able to receive that attention.
Yes.
So for me, I do remember having a boyfriend in the very beginning. He would have been there, and I was like, get away, I don't need this. And you try to change me, and could not.
It's offensive. Yeah.
Gosh,
Yes,
I could not receive it. Today I'm thinking, oh my God, poor man. He was just what I would like now.
Yes.
You know, give it. And I could not receive it. Could not receive it.
And that's probably because, Martina, you weren't used to getting it. So you had created a different way. Yes.
Totally.
So it's like, what's wrong with him? What's he after? Kind of thing.
Yeah, lack of trust, isn't it?
Yeah. What does he want?
It was like
trying to be the boss.
Presents. No, it was for me. It was like he was wanting to give me all sorts of presents and flowers and
yes.
Yeah, wait, I can open my own door. You know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But you know, I come from Austria, so you know.
It's also part of the 60s and that, wasn't it? Growing up in the 60s, it was all about burning your bra and just being a strong woman.
Yeah.
Feminism.
Back now, this poor guy, you know.
Martina, I can relate to this. I have a twin brother, so being raised together, I guess out of admiration and love for my brother, I try to be like him, because as a child, you don't really relate to being a female or male. You just relate to each other, like you pick up each other's habits. So we were allowed to play together. So everything he played with, I wanted to play with him. And I used to force him to play with me with my dolls, because he was my playmate. So I guess now that you're talking about this, I'm looking back into my relationship. I can see that I studied in school things that are logical, engineering, things like that, because it was male aspect of myself. It's now later on I learned more creative things, because I felt that's missing in my life. I was drawn to that later on. And then now I see that he has picked up some of mine. So he relates to female very well. And then he ended up deciding to get married to someone who does not want to work. He wanted to be the one taking care of the person. So I guess by association, he wanted to be the caring person, because he used to, I don't know, I guess he's carried something as a result of having this twin relationship, which is, now that you're talking about it, makes me think about this dynamics in terms of how you feel it. It's fascinating. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Has anyone else wants to share something along those lines?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Andrea.
I'm from the dawn. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see. Wow.
No,
so anything strong male and weak female, or strong female and weak
male? No, I mean, I had many people or clients or experiences in the past, my experiences of clients as well, that, I mean, you didn't mention this, but when you were listing that men traits or whatever you were saying earlier, I would say men have a huge sensitivity, even if you didn't mention it in the list, but I would say men are even more sensitive than women, in my experience. Not they disguise it, but I'd say they are much more sensitive. And with regards to what we program into, and with regards to in the past,
so Andrea, I just want to say we're not talking about the male body that we're choosing,
I know.
the male female. So let's say a male body, that is very sensitive, would probably have a very strong female hemisphere,
Yes.
or actually a very wounded male. Okay, so it's always that.
That's what I'm trying to say. That the guy had. I said to him, "What's going on here?" And then he revealed, "Oh, this because of my father." So we hear that. So he, you know, he can get to the balance. But from what I have in the past, from what I learned, and I think, I don't know if Martina, you remember this, but we did an exercise many, many years ago, it feels like centuries, but it's about balancing the ball. So when you marry the both sides, and when you learn to have to, not accessorize, what's the name, have to use both sides, then you automatically.
That's right.
Okay, you now, bitch, fuck off. Oh, I love you. You know, you marry the both sides, and you use it and you work it. The way is the best contribution to you and to whatever you desire, or to whatever it is in the universe. But
okay,
you have to really be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable enough to say, okay, I have to give myself into this healing, or give myself to this, okay, this is, I'm injured here, or I'm, you know, vulnerable here.
Yes.
Here, I heal it, and I heal this, and I heal this, and it comes together. Because what happens is, if we don't, or if people who don't, it can lead to testicular cancer. People who don't have balls to stand up for themselves. I'm just saying it does happen. It's an example of cause and effect. Or people have heart problems, or people have other issues. But when we are vulnerable enough to say, shit, I have this problem, then we are in business. That's the first step.
Yeah. So thank you very much for bringing that up. And we will be talking about the 5 levels of intimacy, and Andrea just mentioned one. Vulnerability is one of them. Okay, so keep that parked at the moment, and then obviously also the exercises, we're going to look at that, because yes, we can cognitize this now and meditatively, you know, look at it, and then allow the integration to happen. But there is very much, you know, there are physical exercises, anything where you literally think of right side of the body, left side of the body, and you bring them over. So you're making that, so exercises like, for instance, in a yoga exercise, you know, like the eagle arms, you know, anything where you're crossing the midline, cross crawls, I think that's what it's called. So anything where you're crossing the midline with those exercises. So this is something we can.
Yeah, we did. Remember, we did that serpent.
I don't remember, but you know, the serpent. So we can always look at that.
But we did that.
It's my male side of the brain doesn't remember shit.
The both sides, and then that's how things emerge and whatever. But yeah, it's useful for anybody anyway. So
cool. Thank you for that so far. Anyone else who wants to say anything to strong male, strong female? No. Yes.
Yeah. Only that it's all coming from that wound, isn't it? Of you know, the feminine principle was revered, and then it was taken away, wasn't it, through this whole patriarchy, the women, the priestesses that lived in harmony with the masculine.
Yes.
And so it's all coming from that wounded place, isn't it?
Yes.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, our society, this is something that we haven't mentioned yet, is that our society is a male-dominated society. Therefore, we don't really get to experience too much what it's like to have over femininity. I know from my own experience, I was very feminine as a young man. When I was born, you know, when we were young and we have all our little spiritual gifts that we have, for me, I was very, very feminine. And I was, you know, I've told you about what my youth was like. And I was just destroyed. As soon as I got to school and to senior school, it was just like all that innocence was destroyed. And it just led to a life of violence. You know, it did. It really led to a life of violence because I had to survive. And that wasn't because of my own imbalance. That was my environment.
Yeah, I know, Matty. And I had 3 boys. I have 1 girl and 3 boys. And when my boys were very young, they were really sensitive. And when they'd see something sad on telly, they used to cry. And when they went to school, the girls absolutely loved them, and they'd be invited to all the parties. And I knew that was all going to change, and it did. And it is quite sad, actually, that happens. I felt so sorry for them because they had to sort of, as they say, toughen up, and they had to put out more of this acceptable male side. But I was reading somewhere that in our evolution, actually, I don't know if any of you ever read Credo Musha's stuff. He's an old African kind of seer. David Icke used to interview him a few times. I don't know if he's still alive, but he reckons that way back at the beginning, that we were actually all both male and female, and that we were separated, and that it is this separation that is causing us the pain now, because we're trying to unite that. But now they removed out the male, so we can see it as separate from the female. It's interesting. It's very interesting, actually, to read that stuff, because yeah.
And you know, Mary, as well, the thing is that once I began to reintegrate the feminine, that's when I really became powerful. You know, the idea that the masculine is the one that's going to get you for the power, but actually it's a limitation. You know, once I had the femininity, and I look back and I think all the way through my life, if I just had the courage to have that femininity, I would have been okay.
Yes.
Because I could have said, well, fuck you, I don't care what you think.
True. Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
The potency comes through the choice of being able to choose whatever is required. There is no one better than the other.
Yeah.
But it's about the equilibrium between both, being able to, sometimes as a woman, you have to be, anyone who's given birth, there is no like, you know, you have to be strong as an ox, right? In order to get through this.
Sure.
So you have to step into the male, even though of course it's all happening chemically, you know.
Yes.
But that's just, you know.
Well, it's the determination, isn't it, Martina?
Yeah,
you know, you have to go into
the commitment, and all of that. And then you also need to be able to do the opposite, you know.
Yes. To nurture the child then, you're back into the
nurture
female.
the child, exactly.
Yes.
And then, of course, even more so to nurture yourself within all of that that's going on. So, of course, everything, this whole, you know, emotional mastery and this whole, what we're doing on this journey for awakening, if you wish, or enlightenment, or, you know, becoming, is all part of that. And the more, you know, even a contract revocation, the male, the female contract revocation that we're doing is part of that, because it starts to balance exactly the male and the female. So the idea of bringing this up here is to really look back. Doesn't matter which level of awareness we're at this stage, and say, okay, so what does it actually look like now? Where am I just now? And this is an exercise you can keep doing over and over again, because it will change. It will completely change. And then, you know, you often get a lot of idea, you know, once you start taking it outside of yourself and say, okay, so Matty, tree, is your wife the tree that you require? Or Mary, surrender, is your husband surrendering just yet?
Not enough.
Or Sue, you know, what about this wimpy gay man, you know? Or do we need something else in our, or Norman, foxy lady, okay, you know? That type. Oh, no, the cheetah. Where's the cheetah in your life, you know? Linda, gray man. Does that need changing, or is that the contribution that you require? Blah, 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 that type of stuff. So let's go back into, let's just look at the opposite, strong female, weak male. And again, we're going within ourselves, strong. So if you have a strong female within and a weak male, what's happening? The opposite, you're probably, what I've written down, it's almost like water on the surface, lots of water, a lot of emotion, a lot of potentiality, and nothing ever happens, you know, because there's no focus. And then we're expecting our men to come in, oh, can you do it for us, you know?
I have an example of this, Martina.
Yes.
One time where I see over femininity, and this probably may not go down well with many people, but this is the love and lighters. You know, there are so many people that I know that are all into love and light, and you know, they say, oh, I'm just, you know, spiritual and everything's gentle, and they're always the people that are late. They're always the people that are late to everything, and they're always the people that don't have any structure and just, you know, do whatever the hell they please. and there's no actual real discipline behind any of their practice. I see that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing right or wrong about this. It very much depends, because very often these women in particular, or men for that matter, they find themselves a partner who gives them that in order to stabilize it. The only thing is, you're then talking about a codependent relationship rather than a co-creative one. And if you're happy with a codependent relationship, then that's absolutely fine. It's a little bit old paradigm now in this new energy, and you probably will at some stage start having problems. I see codependent relationships, they seem to work on the outside, but you can perceive the lie quite heavily.
Yeah. Because the balance, you're still incomplete, aren't you? You know, the balance has to come from within, not from without.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you've got the judgment going on between the partners, and you've got the expectations from the other person to do something that you're not willing to do yourself, or you're doing too much, that blah blah blah, this whole thing.
And then when you self-heal,
it falls away. It doesn't really matter anymore. You know, you turn into this divorceless relationship because it doesn't really matter, you know. And then it's, I always say, you know, if your cup is full, your left and right brain are in balance, then, you know, whatever the foam on top is what you then can share. You never give away your essence anymore, but you find people in your life who actually want to co-create with you rather than suck you dry or overly want to look after you, because at some stage you don't necessarily need that anymore, you know.
Yeah.
Or needing that relationship to be balanced.
Yes. Does anyone want to say anything to that before we're moving on?
Yes, I would like to, Martina. Yes, but also, you know, every relationship period is a contribution. However you put it, whether it's this or this, old or new, there are a lot of people stuck in the old, which you said, oh, it's an old thing, paradigm bullshit. But the people do that. But then how do you change it? How do you overcome it? How do you come out like, okay, cool, whatever it is, you know? I'm sure many of our on this call in there that got the t-shirt, including myself. And I said, okay, cool, this is it. Am I in shit? Whatever. Martina screaming at me, whatever, you know. I'm willing to be vulnerable, and I changed.
Exactly. So you are an example of that.
Was it easy to? No. But I said, okay, cool. So this is it. This is it. This is what I want. Okay, cool. So I changed the energy. I changed things. Then I thought, okay, cool. Is it better for me now? Yes. Is it more enjoyable in my life? Yes. Is it? But what I wanted to say earlier is that with the female and the male energies, you can create. So if somebody is not in what they want now, what you can do is you can create what you want with your rhythm. And with the rhythm, what I'm saying is Andrew talks about this, but there is a different level of this called the quantum jump. And you can go to your future self.
Andrea, can I just, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you rudely there, but that's an exercise. Can we put that to the end? Yeah. So I just want to finish first, and then keep that in mind. Quantum jump exercise is lovely, so we can talk about it. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that yes, it can be changed. You don't have to be stuck in the rut. You don't have to be where you are. It's possible if you are willing to be.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. So just going back to container, I think Sue mentioned container, Matty just mentioned the structure now. So the structure, the male structure within ourselves holds the female creative power, holds it, expresses it, helps it to express in a more structured way, if you wish. So then we've got let's just run through the last two. So you've got a weak male and a weak female. What does that look like?
Disaster.
Useless.
No ideas, no decisions, nothing ever happens, right?
No, nothing ever happens.
Next.
That would be addiction.
So what would that person?
Hypochondriac.
What would that person on the outside probably do or be, or
Drunk.
Submissive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
submissive. Yeah.
very inactive, I'd imagine, sitting around waiting for things to happen.
Victim comes to mind. Addiction comes to mind.
Yes.
So seeking outside.
Hypochondriac, create the infinite potential of illness and
yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, not taking responsibility for their reality.
Chicken shits, like Andrew calls them. Chicken shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
These
And
are the kind of people that end up watching lots of television and living vicariously through others. Those kind of people, all going into addictions.
So a very disempowered individual, that type of stuff. Yeah. Okay. And then we got strong male, strong female. What would that look like?
Dynamic, I'd say. All action, all go.
All action.
Yeah.
And what does all action come with?
Conflict.
Interesting. Yes.
Yes.
But could be not. Not everything is, it could be fantastic.
Yeah. Could be fantastic.
It could be.
Money, brilliance, harmony, balance, boom, boom, boom,
This is kind of relationship
overpowering.
Yeah, the strong female might balance out the strong male, The strong female, because she would be complete in herself, would be able to. I'm talking now about positions within the one person, the male and the female.
Oh yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so that side would be able to sort
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
balance out the strength of the male, and that could work really well.
Well, that's interesting. Does it really balance it out? If the strong look in yourself, and then we can look outside. Taking a partner into it, strong female, strong male. So there is a bit of overwhelm. This could lead to burnout. Go, 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 go.
Well, not if the female is strong enough to be able to be in that energy. I mean, the energy of the female isn't about go, go, go. The energy of the strong female is more about allowing and receiving and accepting.
Mary, let's look. Okay, we need to just identify what strong versus balanced female.
Okay.
So overly strong. Okay.
Okay. I get
so just for us to think.
Yes.
So I'm talking overly strong.
Okay.
Not balanced.
Right.
Overly strong male.
The kind of person that would beat you up and then cry about it afterwards.
Yeah. Let's strong.
So Matthew's got it straight away. I beat you up, and that's it.
Would they be sort of a bit schizoid? Because it'd be like two people in one body.
Yeah, it would be. But I don't think they could live together, to be honest, for long.
Can you live with yourself?
That's what I mean, in the one body.
I know.
Yeah.
You'd be at battle with yourself constantly.
Stubborn determination. I've got competition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yet again, Martina, many
competitive and hierarchical.
Live with people, what you're saying. Like, I know many people who live with exactly what you're saying. I know many people.
Well, why do you think we're doing a Zoom on it? So that
many people. They're not willing to give it up.
Yeah. So so that's just that. And then think of a strong female, strong male, now getting herself a partner who attracts like. Again, a bit familiar to me. It's like, whoa, now you've got two people with strong female and strong males, like fighting, competing. Yeah, happens all the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember the term dink?
Say again?
The term dink. Do you remember the term dink? No income, no kids.
No.
Breaking up.
Can you hear me?
No, not clearly, Dave.
I think he said double income, no
dink.
kids.
Yeah, that would be two people, strong female. It's just competitive, hierarchical, acquisition, and that with no, the compassion or the other stuff to,
Yeah.
you know,
A lot of duality, a lot of
both.
charge and polarity, a lot of separation rather than, because
It may make you a good athlete, though.
yeah, because the strong female doesn't want to be submissive when it's required,
Yes.
and the male female and the strong male doesn't want to take off, to allow the female to be, this is this balance we were talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So anything comes up for anyone who wants to share something here before we carry on?
I'm trying to get a sense of it, Martina, and I suppose I'm trying to get a sense because all of these positions, are actually have been in all of us at some stage.
Yes, absolutely.
And at different times, and will be. And I'm trying to get a sense of when I might have experienced that, and I'm having difficulty with it actually. I don't know when I've experienced that in myself, the strong male and the strong female. And the only sense I can get of it is when I found myself tripping myself up. Yeah. And not being able to achieve any move or, kind of just stagnant almost. Yeah. I think that when I'm in that sort of place, that both sides are at war almost with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's exhausting.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
So what we're going to do now is we're just going to get a perspective of where you're at now, okay, with all of that. And we're going to do this by getting back into our meditation. So if you want to, again, mute yourself, and it's not going to take long, and close your eyes again. And then I want you to bring your two images that you were conjuring up before, like your male and your female, and bring that back into your awareness. Okay? And they may already have changed just by having, our conversation here, or they may not. It doesn't really matter at all. So what you can actually do, think of yourself, or even you might want to bring the palms out and take those with your eyes closed. Bring the female on one side and the male on the other. It doesn't really matter which one. And then just see how they relate to each other. Do they relate to each other? And really look at the symbolism there. What type of symbolism have you brought up? And how do those characters, pictures, symbols, energies, how do they relate to each other? And then just ask them if they have anything they would like to communicate to one another or to you, because you're the observer here, having your male and your female basically out on your palms talking to each other. Or they might not even want to talk to each other. I don't know. See what's going on there. How do they relate? And then just stay open to what comes. And they might use words, images, feelings. Just get a sense of that. And then there might be something that you would like to say to them or to ask them. And you can do that now too. Yeah, then when that process just feels complete, and again, remind yourself you can do this over and over again, and just take another deep breath. Keep your eyes closed still. Come back into that quiet, still place inside of yourself. And then get your male to ask the female if there's anything she desires. And then ask your male to give your female a gift. And then just take note of what that gift is like. And again, it could be anything, could be an energy. And then we're going to turn it around. Ask your female to give your male a gift. What does he require from her? Good. And then take those gifts and just keep them safe somewhere. And then when you're ready, just open your eyes again and come back. Use your breath to take you back into the present moment. And then maybe you want to share what came out of this one.
I'll share on that one.
Go for it, Daitina.
So they started off, they changed, they were actual physical human figures, a male and a female. Mm-hmm. And then they were standing next to each other with a boundary in between them. And it felt like the fascia that goes in between the left and the right brain. And then they were trying to figure out how to correspond and relate to each other with this boundary between them. And the male was a little more assertive in saying, this needs to be here, but we need to figure out how to talk to each other and how to connect to each other and still remain in place. And then the female, she decided that in order to give over to the male, she showed him how to communicate through the boundary, through her heart. And then the male's gift to the female was how to communicate in the ether elements and within the process of non-thought and non-duality. And so he gave her this gift that like went over the top of the boundary.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Daitina. How does that feel different in your body now? Does it feel different?
Yeah, my feet are pulsing, and I feel a little bit more present in my body. Yeah.
Fabulous. Great stuff. Thanks. Huh? Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else wants to show us?
Oh, I'd love to share mine. It was okay. A beautiful experience.
Tree and turtle.
Yes, so they remained the same. And then I got a sense from that the tree, the feminine, was what keeps me rooted and connected to everything. And the turtle was the freedom to move around and in an ocean, you know, like just ultimate freedom and movement and migration. And then the gift that they gave each other, the turtle gave an egg to the tree and the tree gave a seed to the turtle. And then I had an image of like the yin yang. And that was that really. I just felt a sense of completion, just very peaceful. That was beautiful.
There's one thing I'd like to point out. The tree needs soil to live on the earth, to be rejuvenated and nourished, whereas the turtle needs water. It's a water element. Just play with that a little bit in your own mind. see how that works for you. Obviously it works, but just look at that. It's quite a different, interesting. Cool.
It is beautiful. It's really touched me, actually. I'm going to have to really think about that. It's very beautiful.
Cool. Thanks, Matty. Anyone else?
I can come in here.
Please do.
Yes, my female was a cheetah and I had a male fox. And they ended up being very big mates together. And even though it's completely different. And the fox got one of the hens out of the hen coop, and that was the present he gave to the cheetah. And the cheetah caught a deer in Richmond Park, funny enough. And they just came very good mates. And even though they're completely different, and they lived happily ever after.
Oh, fantastic. Well done. Like it. Cool.
Well, I don't know whether I want to share mine on public domain, but
oh, you've got to now.
My female, my masculine showed up like a hybrid from the wimpy gay guy to the empowered masculine sovereign hunky guy, as sort of in between the both. And so I initiated a sexual healing, and in that process it was a rite of passage and a permission slip to become into manhood, I suppose. And the gift I was given was like a little mermaid or a fish symbol, which I think is permission to be in that feminine flow and emotionality that I be. But the gift that I gave the masculine was a staff, a really like powerful, beautiful, wise man's staff. And I think that was very much a permission slip to put your stake in the ground and let the masculine within me, claim the space as we do with our sovereign invocation. So that was very, very powerful. And there was a transition. The masculine was not only a bit older and a bit more rugged, but was very muscular. So I felt like that was a symbol of the empowerment that had taken place. So
fantastic.
Very nice, thank you very much.
Well done. Now, Matty and Norman and Sue now, just make a connection in the body with it too, just like we did with Daitina. Just feel it wherever, so that you integrate it into the body, wherever you're perceiving that, feeling that, just for yourselves. Cool. Anybody else wants to share theirs?
Yes, Martina. My image for the female, I stayed with the Celtic woman, and this time the male did have form and shape, and it's very interesting actually, I think, because I loved the film Braveheart, and this guy came as Braveheart.
Oh.
So I think the pun on the word is really interesting.
Yes.
So he said he absolutely loves the female shape and the female form. He loves the flowingness of the shape, and it didn't feel in any way sexual. It felt very spiritual. And he gave me roses. And the gift,
beautiful.
I got that really fast. The roses, I mean, that image came to me really fast. And what I had for him was an arrow. And I think that's also very interesting, because again, there's the focus and the pointing in the direction and all of that. When I got them to speak to each other at one stage, they were changing form a bit. When I had to put them into the palms of my hands, they did turn into the brain, which I thought was really interesting. That Daitina got that as well. Mm-hmm. And I had each hemisphere in each hand, and they were desperately wanting, especially the female, to join together. That was just an aspect of how it was changing form, but it was interesting. overall, it was an interesting.
I really love the exchange of the gifts, like the strong female says, you have the bow, you have the arrow,
Yes.
and then I'll take the rose. So
Yes.
it's full integration there. Love that. Well
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
Okay, so for you, Mary, too, find that space in the body where you're really feeling that, and just, integrate that for a moment for yourself.
Okay.
Oh, thanks for sharing, guys. Anyone else who wants to share? Good. So go with that now, because that metaphor will change over time, and then you can do this exercise over and over again and just get an idea where you're at in that particular moment of time, but you all get now the idea of having the male and the female actually in equilibrium, talking to each other, and it's just so simple. By doing such a simple exercise we've done. And then, of course, the other thing is for you to check now and be aware and acknowledge, most importantly, acknowledge how is this now going to translate into your relationships outside of yourself. If you do have a partner, what is that gonna, create? And then if you don't have a partner, what partner are you starting to attract? Or if you don't want to attract a partner, then go with your friends, or even anything in nature. The stuff that you start seeing might change, that you're perceiving, all of that.
Yes.
So this is part of that, being intimate within ourselves, with the male and the female. And then we mentioned earlier on the exercises, so anything that helps us to cross the midline. And we can cross midlines, with, I don't know, yoga, qigong, tai chi, all of that. But, even you just simply sitting there and taking the palms together and, interlacing them and bringing them into the heart here, that by itself will help you to balance. So if you feel that you're starting to become a superior bitch again or something, say, okay, Mel is getting too strong, right, okay, let's just do a bit of that, or if you're starting to, if you feel like, oh, you really need to do something, you need to make a plan, it doesn't matter if you're male or female now, body wise, then just bring it back in to strengthen, to get the balance again, and then everything else would just start happening through that. So finding lots and lots of different ways of doing that. So I want to also go into the 5 elements of intimacy. How can we be intimate with ourselves? And, I'm going to use the Access suggestion there, because they're looking at love. Love is such a big word that really doesn't mean anything to us anymore, because it's been abused and misinterpreted and misidentified and misapplied for so long now. So they're actually looking, what does love actually mean? What does being intimate with myself actually mean? What are the elements of that? And we already mentioned one before, and that was vulnerability. Yeah, so one of them is vulnerability, where you allow yourself to be vulnerable. And that would be probably, again, it goes male and female, knowing that you have the strength, that you can be strong, but also looking at the weakness, being weak, being vulnerable as a strength, not a weakness. Because so often it gets misapplied. People think, oh, I'm weak, so I can't be vulnerable, I can't cry, I can't let my barriers down, I can't let myself be looked after by others, because that's a weakness. Well, what if that vulnerability is actually a strongness? And going back to male-female, especially, if you want a man to step into their male hemisphere as a woman, then you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. You have to be able to choose whatever is required. And if you're a male and you want a female to step into her strong male side, then you also have to let go a little bit on the male side, the male hemisphere, you know? So it's being able to choose whatever is required now. So many men are sensitive, so many men are, and yeah, allow it, be that. And the more you have that balance from within, the more you will start attracting people into your life that have the same. That's when you really can start playing. In the beginning, it's going to be a bit tricky. You're still in your old relationship and, you know, you're all of a sudden, but then you just need to play and say, okay, what is required right now? And be reminded that the more you go into equilibrium, the more you allow others the space and possibility to do the same. That's the old saying, the more you change, you will see how your partners, existing partners, people around you start approaching you in a different perspective too. So from a woman perspective, for instance, if you stop trying to bloody control everything in the house, you know, then the male will have an opportunity to step in. And you will find that it will surprise you that they have capacities that they actually want to do stuff that you never thought possible. But they would have never done it because it was already sorted by you. And we all know that. And it's the same for the men. That's that disempowerment that we do to each other by having that imbalance within ourselves. So that's a little bit on the vulnerability and the choice, choosing when to choose this and that. Another element of intimacy is looking at honor, honoring each other for our choices and becoming the witness for each other and really being completely present with that person. Not going into judgment, even if it doesn't work for us necessarily what they're choosing. As long as it's not detrimental to your health, to yourself, as long as it's just something, it's just interesting point of view, what they're choosing, that type of stuff. So that's that honoring, that witnessing each other. What else have we got? I always need to look it up. Honor, it's like respecting each other on that level, not always needing to tell them, you know, oh, there's a better way. There's always a better way of doing shit, always. But sometimes is it really required, you know? And allow them to learn through their own mistakes, if you wish, because there are never mistakes anyway. There is no failure. There's only a recognition of what could be done, probably in a sort of more, in a better way. So that's that. Trust is another one. And trust is quite I like the way they look at trust, because trust is not blind faith. Okay? So, and again, take it within yourself. It's not blind faith, trust. It means that I trust, you know, your partner. Take it outside is probably easier. And then you can take it inside again, you know, bring them in. So just for argument's sake here, it's like, I trust that my partner does certain things a certain way, which don't necessarily work for me. But, you know, in the bigger picture, I can live with it, you know. So I trust that he will not do something in a different way, because I know what he's like. Even if he says to me, yeah, I know he's not going to do it. Yeah. So I'm not in blind faith here. Oh, all of a sudden, miraculously, he will change. No, I trust to know what I know, what he will do. So you have a preparedness. You're not living in this expectation and projection, because you know. So that's that definition for trust that they have. And I love it. Absolutely love it, because there's such an honoring again in that, you know. And then there is allowance. And that leads me back to that tool that I often give out, that interesting point of view, just being in allowance, you know, and not always trying to push your point of view onto others. Being an allowance for yourself too, intimate levels for yourself, because you're not always in choice. Sometimes you mess up, and sometimes you feel like, you know, you're too aggressive, or you're too meeky, or whatever, and that's okay too. So always allowing yourself to be what you are, and then say, okay, so how can I improve that, probably, to make me happier? Because at the end of the day, when you do lash out, it doesn't really make you happy anyway, you know. So finding that joy within yourself and allowing yourself to go outside the edges of that joy at times, you know, outside of that comfort, because there is no comfort really, just, and bringing it back in. And then of course there's gratitude. So that's the fifth element of intimacy, where, you know, be this now within yourself or with anything outside of yourself, where you're using gratitude for each other, for the things that you do, you know, and stuff like that. Because gratitude is, as I always say, is really the antidote for judgment. If you feel that you're going into judgment, okay, so what, and even if it's a tiny thing, let's say you're feeling really depressed and you're feeling in a bad space, what can I be grateful for today? Just a tiny thing. You know, oh, I can get dressed. Okay, great. I can make my own coffee. I have a coffee machine. I have a house. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And really practicing the small things in life, or the big things, of course, you know, the victories, counting the victories and all of that, to come back into that space, into that energetic, into that equilibrium between male and female, between, you know, that space, that then, that signature frequency that you truly be, that then attracts things, people, stuff, whatever, into your life. So that's the spiel. That's what I wanted to say. Is there something you guys want to say to that?
Well, of course, it was the great Groucho Marx who said you only need two things for a good relationship, and that's trust and integrity. And then he said, when you fake both of those, you've got it made. So there you go.
Yeah, and integrity, we probably could, if we use all of that. I looked at that many times, if there was one missing or not, and then integrity, you can always, you know, if you have trust and honor and allowance that to yourself, that would probably make up the integrity.
Exactly.
You can just call it something else. Just look at, I often, you know, with words, when you get hung up on words, just look at the energy. That's why love for me means absolutely nothing, because it's such a convoluted, distorted, it just means nothing.
It's a limited word.
It's a limited word nowadays. I love you, love you, love you. Okay, well, means nothing. But if you break it down, and you don't have to use those are just ideas. You can use your own, but just break it down. Sometimes this chunking down is real. I mean, I'm a huge big picture person, and I need the big picture in order to stay motivated. And sometimes I go into my mail and say, okay, a little bit of process, baby. Okay, process. You know, and I thought I couldn't do process, but I can actually. You know, once I balanced my male and my female, I realized, oh, actually, once I allowed my male to be the male, it started to all become much more flow and ease and joy and bliss and blah, blah. Anyone else?
I just wanted to say something on trust, really.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's a really powerful word. And I liked the link between integrity and trust. Because if there was any solution to healing the wounds that we're carrying with the masculine and feminine, for me, it's definitely trust. And ultimately trust in self. So that's why I liked the link between integrity and trust, because trust isn't blind faith in something outside of you. Trust is built up through your own integrity of knowing yourself. So I really love that, and I think trusting in my feminine is a big deal in terms of the union. and also then trusting in my masculine to look after me and hold that boundary. Yeah, so for me, trusting in self is the key to the healing of the disparities of, you know, the bastardization of our divine and masculine qualities. So yeah,
So
I liked integrity being linked into that.
yeah. Yeah, thanks, Norman, for that. It's really lovely. So it's like, it's trusting to know that you know what works for you, and also trusting that your male has your back as the female.
Yeah.
Totally.
Your male has the back, has your female's back, you know?
Yeah.
And your female is the one's like, okay, let's go. Whoa, we'd like to do this. Just this. The female inside yourself is the inspirer, the motivator, the infinite possibility. And then the male comes in and says, okay, she's on her trip again. Okay, cool. What can we do? How can I do this for you? Inside that one person. Okay, so now let's make a plan, baby. Let's do this. Good idea. Let's make a plan. The male comes in as the plan maker. Let's do this, the processor. And the female, and then, you know, the female can start going off again and thinking of new stuff, you know, because the male without the female's got nothing to do within ourselves, right? And then, of course, once we get more grounded within ourselves with that concept, what's actually happening, then we can look at the outside and say, okay, so how am I reflecting that intimacy within myself on the outside? And again, that balance is choice for me. It's not that constantly neutral perspective. No, sacred neutral perspective does not create. Okay, it's an observer, unentangled observer, and yes, it's hugely important. And once we've understood what an unentangled neutral observer is, then we can go into, doesn't create charge and polarity anymore. It doesn't even have to create duality. You can still create like that through choice. That's not charge and polarity. So what is required right now?
And the interesting thing is that they both support each other as well.
Yes.
Because just the action of bringing into balance, just the action of saying, right, I need to initiate my feminine, I need to initiate my masculine, doing that is a masculine action. Then just allowing it to happen is a feminine action. Yeah. So, you know, even just the action or non-action of going between male and feminine as well could be either. You know?
One can't be without the other.
Yes, they coexist completely.
One can't see itself without the other. It's like the light and the shadow, isn't it? That type of stuff.
Absolutely.
And the difference is from charge and polarity is that there is no emotional investment in it, but not from a like your heart can be in it, but you know what I mean. There is no what's the word? It's different. We're going through a different way of experiencing emotions. You can experience anger and then you snap out of it. It's like, fuck. Okay, hey, I'm back. Great. You know, you don't linger in it. You don't go into the story. You don't stay there. You don't inflict it on others, you know, and stuff like that, you know.
I find with balance, these things work for me instead of against me.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, if I'm in a piss poor mood or something, I often say to my guys, look, hey, don't talk to me for the next half an hour because I'm going to lash probably out. And then they know, okay, my amazing. Okay, cool. Doesn't even take me half an hour because as soon as you voice it, you are in allowance of yourself. Exactly. You're not resisting. Oh, I'm a bitch to that. No, just being allowing. Okay, I'm back. Cool. What else? What else can we do now? That type of stuff.
Yeah. When you voice it, you can dissolve it.
Yes.
If you fight anything, you give it power. Always.
Yeah.
And if you don't express it, it's going to get stuck. It's that stagnant energy within yourself is going to create the dis-ease in your body.
Yes.
The more it's stuck there,
Exactly.
the more it's going to create the unhappiness, the depression, the physical disease. Until you become completely disempowered. And then you got, and then you get the people that, you know, they feed that disempowerment from a place of wanting to help, not realizing that they're just making it worse for the person and for themselves.
Yes.
And this is why it's so good to really go back and play. So let's leave all of that for now. Let's look at my own relationship within myself. And once you've become that person that has choice, you can choose at any moment what is required. That's when you really become a contribution to others. And then you don't even have to do anything anymore, because you become that energetic, that signature frequency, that light, if you wish, that just attracts, that just your beingness creates the change for you, just walking into a room without even opening your mouth. And everybody's like, oh, what's going on there? Cool. Any questions? Anything you guys want to say before we're going to close it off for today?
I just wanted to say, Martina, on the trust that Susan brought up there, that would be hugely important as well for me. It's because I would link trust with faith and belief in yourself. And without having that, you couldn't possibly be vulnerable with yourself. So the first line of defense mechanisms that we employ them against ourselves. So we can't see what we're doing. You know, we don't see that we have a defense if we're not able to trust that we can hold ourselves and be vulnerable with ourselves to work through something.
Yeah.
So to have that belief and faith
Absolutely.
in yourself. Yeah.
And faith is I've started to look at faith. I never looked at faith before until Amy started talking about breakage in faith. And I thought, what is this breakage in faith business, you know? And when I look at the energy, for me, faith is now, I don't link it to trust at all. For me, faith is the acknowledgement of the mystical, allowing myself to believe in the magic. That's just for me. So I had to look at that. You know, breakage in faith is, no, don't ever not believe in the mystical, in the magic, in the faith, you know.
Yes.
You stop yourself, you block yourself that way.
You do.
That's the feminine. That's the feminine that often loses faith, of course, because of you know, not being received, of not being able to receive the masculine, the inside, the outside, the over masculinity of the feminine, all clearly because of the programming, because of our wounding. And you know what? That's what we're here for. That's all karmic retribution. That's what we've come here for. So it's no point to even say, oh God, you have to work. Yeah, that's why you're here. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. This is the school, right, of hard knocks. This is why we're here, to learn so that we can then start teaching all this shit to the off-worlders who have forgotten what it's like to perceive polarity, charge and polarity. That's what we're here for. Anyone wants to know their purpose, we are teachers.
Yes.
We are healers, all of us.
Yes.
To the fifth world of peace, whatever that means for you, you know. And some of them want to take it to the stars faster than others, and some want to be more earthy and do it on, and some start, obviously. I mean, I became a healer here, you know, in 2004 I started with all of that. And now I'm getting more interested in other species, and hey, what can we do outside? You know, this planet. And it's always an interplay. It's not just here or there. It's like work with them, work here, you know, mix it up. That's the choice bit again. And you do not have real choice if you don't allow yourself to have your right left brain balanced. Yeah, you have to be the lover, you have to be the destroyer at the same time. Not at the same time, but energetically. Just in it. Whenever I say to people, are you willing to destroy your mother? It's like, what the fuck is she talking about? I'm talking energetically. Anything that you're not willing to destroy, that makes you lesser than you truly be, it will eat you up. It will destroy you.
Yeah.
Literally be willing to destroy it so you don't have an attachment to it. You don't have an attachment to the outcome. That's when true choice comes in. It's like, I've done this with my mother. Do I love my mother? Oh my God, I love her, because now I can love her for who she is. And I can see things that I never saw before. And I find her quirky, and I find her extremely inspirational, and this and this and this. But I can choose this now. Before I couldn't, because it was a reaction. Because I was programmed so much. I was wounded
She was
so
always
much.
there, really.
Yeah. So I turned around. That was my choice. I didn't have to. But that's what I'm here for. At least that's what I'm here. That's my purpose. You know, to teach myself and to teach others. I'm also a teacher. Oh. Good.
Okay, Martina, I have something to bring up before I forget.
Yes, Martin.
I don't know if anybody's seen this, but one wonderful piece of homework. There's a really popular TED Talk. I hope you all know about TED Talks.
Yes.
There's one. It's a female neurologist, and I've forgotten her name now. But this doctor, she's a neurologist, and she had a stroke.
Yeah,
And
I've seen it.
have you seen that one? It's very, very interesting because she talks about the loss of her left hemisphere and going completely into her right hemisphere as a very intelligent woman, and what it was like for her in that moment. I found it absolutely fascinating. She actually discovered spirituality in that stroke. And she was actually she was a doctor that dealt with stroke patients. So she got to see it from the inside. It's fascinating.
Fantastic. That's a very good one to look at. You know, if you just, I assume if you put in Google TED Talk female neurologist, it will come up.
Neurologist has stroke, yes.
Right.
And just really that will confirm a lot for what we actually just been exploring today.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a great discussion, Martina. Thank you very much.
Show, guys. Good show.
Thanks, guys, for showing up.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for choosing it. And so we're gonna do this again next week, and we'll see. We'll come up with some topics for next week, and I hope I'll see you again. So thanks.
I hope Laura's better by then as well.
Yes, Laura. So let's send her some healing here. Without crossing any boundaries, sovereignty boundaries. So if she wants to receive it, let's park it off outside her aura, and then she can take it in.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks.
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.